Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you very much for joining today. So we're going to continue with the series on Damodara Lila. Just doing the preamble before the Lila itself. And yesterday we looked at the Gokul chart as an overview of the material and the spiritual world. So this is Devi Dham. Then we have Mahesh Dham, Lord Shiva's. Then beyond that we have the Brahma Jyoti. And then beyond the Brahma Jyoti is the Hari Dham, which is Vaikuntha. Oh, the Brahma Jyoti is there, yes. And then there's Ayodhya, and then Golok, Krishna's abode, which is also split into three. We got Vrindavan in the center, then we got Mathura and Dwarka. So we just wanted to expand a little bit on this concept of one God. What does Vedic philosophy say about God? The original form of God is Krishna. So that's confirmed in a number of scriptures, Brahma Samhita, Srimad Bhagavad Puran, and also the Bhagavad Gita. He has eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin. And when we go to schools, this is a question that comes up often. Who gave birth to God? When was he born? How was he born? But it's a little hard for us to understand that he has no origin. He's always been. Because in this world, we're used to something beginning, and there's a middle, and there's an end. But there's no such transitions for the Supreme Lord. He's always been, always exists, always continue to exist. He's the prime cause of all causes. So this is the Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, 1st verse. So then, is the Vedic belief system monotheistic, one God, or polytheistic, many gods? Right? So when we go to schools, we keep it very simple. One God. Yes, some Hindus do believe that there are many gods, but actually there's only one God. And there are many names of the Lord, and there are many forms of the Lord. We call them incarnations or avatars. But it's important to understand that there is only one Lord. Bhagavad Gita clearly states that. But actually, to get a fuller understanding, it's a little bit more complicated. And it's worth just understanding this for our own sake. It's a little complex, but it's worth understanding this. Because then we'll have a better idea of Godhead. And we should always be in knowledge as opposed to ignorance. Ignorance is sometimes said to be bliss, but actually ignorance is, mode of ignorance is not good. Okay. So there's this phrase, polymorphic monotheism, which is quite an interesting description of the Vedic philosophy, Vedic conception of God. There are many forms of the one God. So polymorphic means many forms of that one God. So he expands himself. He comes as Ram with a bow and arrow to teach and punish. He comes as Krishna with the flute to play and enjoy. Same one God, different mood, different personality. But there are also devatas who are like the intermediaries. So in one sense, we could say these devatas are part of a layered system, multi-layered, polymorphic monotheism. But also we have to understand that God is not just male. According to Hindu philosophy, Vedic philosophy, they are a divine couple. They're one, although they also separate, but they're one. Radha Krishna, one supreme soul manifested in two forms by monotheism. So we could say that the concept of God in Vedic philosophy is multi-layered, polymorphic by monotheism. And that would confuse anybody and everybody. But that's quite a interesting sort of slant on the concept of God. Everybody is looking for God. Well, there's plenty of evidence that Lord Krishna is God. So this is just a conclusion of everything that we talked about yesterday, the 9 different points about pointing to the conclusion that Krishna is God. Okay. Now, names of God. According to the revealed scriptures, there's one God who has many forms, but also many names. So how does that work? Well, he has essentially 2 types of names, primary and secondary. And there's quite a difference between the two. We have to understand the names of the Lord are all very potent. They're very powerful because they're not different from God himself. And this is the omnipresence of the Lord. He's present in his name. So when we sing his name, he's present in that name. So it makes that name very potent. Whether we understand it or not, it doesn't matter. When Ajamil chanted the name of Narayan, his son, the Vishnu Dutas immediately came to protect him. So we can see the potency of the holy name, even when chanted to describe something other than the Lord. So what to speak of when we are actually chanting in love the holy names? So, however, primary names are ones which describe the pastimes of the Lord, such as Govinda, and are regarded as relatively more potent because they address the personal activities of the Lord and thus will attract the Lord's attention more. So if we address the Lord Ishwar, Supreme Controller, it's a nice address because that's a factual position of the Lord, but that's considered to be a secondary name. It's not addressing him with any affection whatsoever. You call him Damodara, then that will catch his attention because Damodara means something very special to the Lord. This pastime is extremely special. So special that it's covered in 2 chapters in the Bhagavatam. Nothing is so extensively covered in the Bhagavatam as Damodara Lila. Secondary names describe the qualities of the Lord, such as Ishwar, controller, or Bhagavan, full of opulences, and are considered relatively less potent than the primary names, as they are addressing the Lord in a formal capacity, and thus they lack the intimacy favored by the Lord. It's just like the example is often given when the child, the father, he goes to the office and he's addressed as Mr. So-and-so or Sir so-and-so. But when he comes home, he's called by his wife, according to whatever name she's given him. And similarly, the children will call him daddy or papa or pitaji or whatever. That will be more attractive to him than being called Mr. So-and-so. So in the same way, God, when he's referred to by his his nicknames, if you like, it attracts him very much. So these nicknames, if you like, are like his primary names. They are the names which will give us closer connection with the Supreme Lord when uttered in love, because it attracts the mercy of the Lord. So Damodar, what is the special meaning of that? The meaning of Damodar is Damo means robe, can also mean self-controlled. Udhar means waste, also can mean which is pure. This refers to a glorious pastime where Krishna, the Supreme Lord, was tied by a rope around his waist by his mother, which is really very inconceivable. God himself is tied by a rope. Who can tie up God? How is it that Yashoda Mai was able to tie the Lord, whom the sun and the moon are so scared of? They rise and set every day. With how was he able to be tied with a rope? So we read that yesterday, the verse from the Bhagavatam, how the sun and the moon and the Yamraj and all the other demigods are they do their service, they do their duty because they're scared of God. That same God was tied up by Mother Yashoda. So the background to this pastime is as follows. In order to enjoy loving parental pastimes, Krishna takes a mother and a father who are not ordinary living beings. So he comes to our world, but he also brings his own entourage, including mother and father. The common understanding is that Krishna appeared to Vasudeva and Devaki 5,000 years ago. He appeared at midnight in the jail in Mathura, and his parents requested him to hide his divinity and somehow leave Mathura. In response to this appeal, Krishna transformed his four-armed form to that of a baby. Invoking his illusory potency, he enabled Vasudeva to leave the prison with him, unnoticed, and cross the Yamuna to Gokul. And there, in the maternity house of Nand Maharaj, unseen by anyone, Vasudeva exchanged his own son for the newly born daughter, Yogamaya, of Yashoda, and thus returned with a girl to the jail in Mathura. When Kams got to know that the child destined to kill him had taken birth, he immediately rushed to the prison to kill the child. But the girl in Devaki's arms was no ordinary child. She slipped away from Kamsa's grasp and, assuming a celestial form, chided the king, disclosing that the child destined to kill him had already been born somewhere else. So this is quite an interesting statement. Has already been born somewhere else. The question is, had the child taken birth in Mathura from Devaki's womb? Not a question that's often asked because it's an assumption that's made. Not according to Krishna's younger sister, Anuja Vishnu. The Srimad Bhagavatam states that Yogamaya had taken birth from Yashoda and she is younger sister of Krishna. Thus Krishna was born to Yashoda. Hence the well-known term, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. However, was Yashoda not aware of this? No, Sukadeva Goswami explains, she was too exhausted by the labor of childbirth and fell asleep. And also, Krishna didn't want her to know that he was also her son. So he made her fall asleep. Who was the child that was born to Devaki? He is regarded to be Vasudeva Krishna, who, when brought to Gokul as Krishna's expansion, merged into the form of Yashoda's son. So there was Yashoda's son, who was the original Krishna, and Vasudeva Krishna, who is the son of Devaki, merged into the original Krishna. This is explained by the Acharyas. It is this expansion who leaves Vrindavan with a crew at the age of 11 and kills Kams. The original Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. And this is from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Why is it that Devaki is commonly known as Mother of Krishna? So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur answers that Devaki and Yashoda were friends. Yashoda wanted Devaki to have the fame of being Krishna's mother. Yashoda means to give fame. So how did Yashoda and Devaki become mothers to the Lord? In the Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami describes this pastime to Maharaj Parikshit in the 10th canto, 8th chapter. Drona and Dara said, please permit us to be born on the planet Earth, so that after our appearance, the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, the supreme controlling master of all planets, will also appear and spread devotional service, the ultimate goal of life, so that those born in the material world may very easily be delivered from the miserable conditions of materialistic life by accepting this devotional service. So they prayed, they did this tapasya. Who to? Lord Brahma. So Brahma said, yes, let it be so. The most fortunate Drona, who was equal to Bhagavan, appeared in Brajapura, Vrindavan, as the most famous Nanda Maharaj, and his wife Dara appeared as Mother Yashoda. So this is all in the Bhagavatam, 48 to 51. Thereafter, O Maharaj Parikshit, best of the Bharatas, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead became the son of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, they maintained continuous, unsavoring, unswerving devotional love in parental affection. In their association, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, the Gopas and the Gopis, developed the culture of Krishna Bhakti. So, very interesting. Whilst the above indicates that 2 demigods became Krishna's parents, Sukadeva Goswami clarifies the position little late in the following paragraph. This is the paragraph where Damodara Lila is explained. Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the son of Mother Yashoda, is accessible to devotees engaged in spontaneous loving service, but is not as easily accessible to mental speculators, to those who strive for self-realization by severe austerities and penances, or those who consider the body the same as a self. So this is the important point here. Just because one does tapasya doesn't necessarily give us access to the Supreme Lord. So those 2 statements, this statement here and this statement here, are contradictory. Just because Dona and Dara did tapasya doesn't necessarily give them the right to become the mother and father of Krishna. So these statements are contradictory. On the one hand, 2 demigods were blessed to become Krishna's parents, but the later verse indicates no one can become Krishna's parents, for Yashoda and Nand are eternally so. So the Gaudiya of Acharyas explained. Srila Prabhupada states in the purport of 8th chapter, 48th verse, when Krishna descends anywhere, he is accompanied by his own associates. These associates are not ordinary living beings. Krishna's pastimes are eternal. When he descends, he comes with his associates. Therefore, Nand and Mother Yashoda are the eternal father and mother of Krishna. This means whenever Krishna descends, Nand and Yashoda, as well as Vasudeva and Devaki, also descend as the Lord's father and mother. Their personalities are expansions of Krishna's personal body. They're not ordinary living entities. So in one sense, they are equal to Krishna. They've come from Krishna's personal body. Further in the purport, in the next verse, Prabhupada says, before Krishna's appearance, Drona and Dara appeared in order to become his father and mother. It is they who appeared as Nanda and his wife Yashoda. In other words, it is not possible for a sadhana siddha, living being, to become the father or mother of Krishna, for Krishna's father and mother are already designated. He further states in the next purport, because whenever Krishna appears on this earth, he superficially needs a father and mother. Drona and Dara, his eternal mother and father, appeared on earth before Krishna as Nand and Yashoda. In contrast to Sutapa and Prishni, they did not undergo severe penances and austerities to become mother and father of Krishna. This is the difference between Nitya Siddha and Sadhana Siddha. So to reconcile this situation, the contradiction of demigod or not, Jiva Goswami explains in the Bhakti Sandarbha. He says, firstly, the first statement in the Bhagavatam must be taken in the light of the second, which carries more weight, should not be contradicted. This is the rule of interpretation per the Vedanta Sutra. And he suggests that Drona and Dara are partial expansions of Nanda and Yashoda, who appear in Swargaloka, and Brahma blesses them. Brahma's blessing was fulfilling a prophecy rather than an independent boon. Even Lord Brahma cannot give such a boon to become Krishna's parents. Krishna's parents are eternally Krishna's parents. Neither Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, or even the goddess of fortune, who is always the better half of the Supreme Lord, can obtain from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the deliverer from this material world, such mercy as received by Mother Yashoda. This is really powerful. Therefore, the following conclusion can be drawn. Nanda and Yashoda are eternal parents of Krishna. Nanda and Yashoda's partial expansions appear as demigods, Drona and Dara. Drona was one of the 8 Vasus, a great devotee of Vishnu who ruled a kingdom in heaven, but was childless. They went to mountain Mandara, received the blessing from Brahma. Lord will appear as their son. And when Krishna's time came to manifest his pastime on earth, Drona and Dara appeared in Gokul in this world. At the same time, the original Nanda and Yashoda manifested their pastime prior to Krishna's descent, and Drona and Dara entered the bodies of Nanda and Yashoda. They were just expansions of Nanda and Yashoda. This is just Lila, different pastimes. In the Bhagavad Amrita, Sanatana Goswami describes that just as Krishna's expansions merge with him or adjust themselves as required, the Gokul Vasis can similarly be born as partial expansions or full expansions, or they can vary their appearance as per time, place, and circumstance. They're pretty much as powerful as Krishna. When Lord Brahma went to Gomata, and the demigods to petition the Lord to descend to protect Dharma, Kshirodakshayi Vishnu instructed the demigods to appear in the family of the Yadus. Having received this order, Drona and Dara asked Brahma for the fulfillment of their desire to have the Lord as their child. So this is a very interesting point about Yashoda and Nanda, eternal fathers and mothers of Krishna. So what about Vasudeva and Devaki? Are they eternal parents to the Lord? Okay, Bhagavatam 10th canto, 3rd chapter states, Krishna explains to Vasudeva and Devaki their identities in previous lives and how he appeared as their son in those lives. To Prishni and Sutapa, he appeared as Prishni Garbha. To Aditi and Kashyap, he appeared as Upendra, Vamandev. So Vasudeva and Devaki are also eternal parents of Krishna. As Prishni and Sutapa, they also underwent austerities. But these austerities were simply expressions of their eternal love for the Lord and not the cause of getting the Lord as their son. Can't do austerities to get the Lord as their son. It's eternally their right. So then that begs the question of the two, Nanda Yashoda and Vasudeva Devaki, who are the actual parents of Krishna? From the statements of the Bhagavatam and previous acharyas, it is clear that Nanda Yashoda are eternal parents of Vrindavan Krishna in Brajdam. And Vasudeva Devaki are eternal parents of Vasudeva Krishna in Mathura Dwarka. The difference between them is that one is a cowherd boy and the other is a Kshatriya. So the cowherd boy is the original form of Krishna, and the expansion of that is Vasudeva Krishna. There is a difference between the two sets of parents as stated by Parikshit Maharaj. So he says in the 47th verse of 8th canto, although Krishna was so pleased with Vasudeva and Devaki that he descended as their son, they could not enjoy Krishna's magnanimous childhood pastimes, which was so great that simply chanting about them vanquishes the contamination of the material world. Nand Maharaj and Yashoda, however, enjoy these pastimes fully. Their position is better than that of Vasudeva and Devaki. Vasudeva and Devaki could not enjoy Krishna's pastimes, not just because they were in jail, but their love was mixed with the knowledge of Krishna's divinity, greatness. Because their love was mixed with this knowledge that Krishna is great, they could not become his pet. Devaki could never have chased after Krishna and tied him up to the mortar. But Yashoda could, because her love was not tainted by Krishna's greatness. It would, Devaki's love would have been out of place in Braj, and they would not have been able to fully appreciate the childish nature of Krishna's pranks. In this regard, Prabhupada writes in the purport of text number 31 of chapter 3, although Devaki is not on the Vrindavan platform, she is near the Vrindavan platform. On the Vrindavan platform, the mother of Krishna is Mother Yashoda. On the Mathura and Dwarka platform, the mother of Krishna is Devaki. In Mathura and Dwarka, the love for the Lord is mixed with appreciation of his opulence. But in Vrindavan, the opulence of the Supreme Lord, Supreme Personality of God, is not exhibited. The original inhabitants of Vrindavan are attached to Krishna spontaneously in devotional service. Nothing can compare to such spontaneous devotional service, which is called Ragatmika Bhakti. When a devotee follows in the footsteps of the devotees of Vrindavan, his devotional service is called Raganuga Bhakti. This is from Madhya Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita 22, 149. So this is quite revealing stuff, not something that's known to most people, but this is what's revealed to us by the Guru Parampara. Very interesting, very confusing as well. Were some of the other Vrijasis also eternal associates of Krishna? According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, some of the gopis and the gopas had also practiced bhakti like Drona and Dara in their previous lives. In other words, some of them were eternal associates of the Lord. When the Lord appears on earth, his associates come from a variety of sources. There are eternal associates. Krishna gives them the opportunity to further intensify their love for him as he intensifies his love for them. So this is really, spiritual life is very dynamic. It's not stagnant. We have to understand our relationship with Krishna is constantly in a increasingly more loving mood if we choose to make it that way. It's not stagnant. Who are the other sources? Demigods, because Krishna advised them, please take birth in the homes of families of the Yadus. And then there's the perfected practitioners who are actually inhabitants of the material world, but who are worthy of going back to Godhead. So they've done their austerity, or they've done enough bhakti to qualify to go back. Krishna gives them the opportunity to associate with his eternal associates and be trained up so that they can enter the circle of his confidence. So that's really interesting. So that's where I wanted to stop at that point. And if there's any questions or comments, this part of the Bhagavad or the pastime is a little complex. So
Yeah,
if there are
Prabhu.
any questions, any comments, please don't feel shy to ask.
I
Not that
want
I
to
know the
ask
answer.
a question, Prabhu. I didn't quite understand that bit where you said when Vasudev took Krishna to Nanda Maharaj, So
Mm.
they got merged. But
Mm.
I know he took the baby girl, isn't it, as
No,
well?
yes, he took the baby girl with him back to the prison.
Yes.
So what happened? Krishna, there was two. To Yashoda, there was twins.
Okay.
There was the girl, the Yoga Maya, but there was also the boy. And that's
Oh,
the original Krishna.
that's original
The
Krishna.
original Krishna. And when Vasudev brought Vasudev Krishna merged with Vrindavan Krishna or Yashoda Krishna.
Okay.
So that's why it's stated Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. He was not born in Mathura because he never leaves Vrindavan.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, it's quite complex what you just
Yeah.
explained. Maybe one day we can go through all that again.
Yes. We do periodically go through this again and again because it is something that's not very well known, and it's something that we are very fortunate to have access to. When Krishna leaves Vrindavan, when a crew comes and takes him, it's not Yashoda Krishna who leaves. Yashoda Krishna stays in Vrindavan. He doesn't, he stays hidden, or he stays there. The gopis can't believe that, he's right in front of them sometimes, but they still can't believe because they saw him ride out with Akrur in the chariot. So the one who left Mathura, for Mathura from Vrindavan was Vasudev Krishna, the expansion. So they merged and then they demerged.
The Gopi Prabhu, they never saw the Vrindavan Krishna after that, never.
They saw him, but they wouldn't believe that's him.
Okay.
Because they saw him on the chariot going with the crew to Mathura.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is also part of the covering of Krishna's Maya on the gopis, because he wanted to intensify their love for him. He would make it so that they wouldn't believe that it's Krishna is there. But he was always there. He never leaves Vrindavan. Why would he ever leave Vrindavan? Why would he ever leave his devotees, those who are so close to him? Thank you for asking.
Thank you for explaining. Yes.
Thank you for asking.
I understood that now. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Anything else? Karuna, did you want to say something?
No, Prabhu, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Damodara Krishna ki jai, Yashoda Krishna ki jai, Devaki Krishna ki jai, Kartik Mas ki jai.